And if your machine gun messiah is reaching critical mass, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Jeff, and this is Industrial December.
Yes!
Welcome.
This is my favorite time of year now, and I hate winter.
It is. Winter's great. Winter is cold, mechanical, unfeeling. It's very industrial, so that's why we went with it, and because it goes really well with December.
It just sounds good. It rolls off the tongue, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, it really does.
See, I'd rather think about Industrial December and how badass it is while on the beach in Barbados. That's just me personally, but hey.
I like the wintertime. The wintertime is very metal, my opinion.
All right.
Who are we talking about this
week? We're fucking talking about Sybreed.
Yeah?
Dude.
Fucking Sybreed. Wow.
Man, I know. I'm really excited if you guys can't tell. This is one of my all-time favorite bands, bar none. These guys are actually who brought me back into metal after I kind of strayed away for several years. So I'm very, very, very excited to be covering these guys.
And this is kicking off what will hopefully be annual Industrial December for discussmetal.com and Discography Discussion podcast. And Dan, once again, this is one of your bright ideas that was really dark and heavy and evil.
Yeah, you know, I really like Sybreed. Jeff got me into them, obviously. And I've been checking them out slowly over time. At first, whenever Jeff said, yeah, it's like industrial, you'll probably really like it. I was kind of like, whatever. I don't ever listen to what Jeff tells me to check out. But
this is true.
it definitely grew on me. I definitely like the more metal aspects of the band. I've really gotten into industrial lately, and this band was kind of a good way to kind of ease me into the pool a little bit. But you know, I'd listened to stuff like Circle of Dust before that, and you know, I thought that stuff was really cool, but a lot of that stuff, you know, kind of had more of like a 90s feel to it. And Sybreed is kind of doing it more modern, at least modern for, 12, 13 years ago? I think their first album came out in 2004.
Yep, 2004.
They're not cutting edge, but they're not old school either.
Well, there's some stuff that they did on their first record that kind of became staples of other musical styles, which will at this point be nameless. But you know, they were about 5 or 6 years ahead of the norm.
Yeah, I guess them, Anemic and Fear Factory, I guess those three were like the torchbearers in the dark hours of quote-unquote industrial metal. Although the further you get into Sybreed's discography, the less industrial and just more straight up like melodic death metal it is.
I'm glad you brought that up now, because when you say industrial to me, my brain starts at Nine Inch Nails. And I know Trent Reznor hates that, but let's be honest, that's how the majority of the world looks at it. And Sybreed has metal chops. They've got metal feel, but they've also got that atmosphere that goes along with electronic music.
Holy shit, I didn't say it first.
And I don't necessarily think that electronics or atmosphere automatically make you industrial. But we'll get into that in a little bit. And before we do, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have an Amazon Echo product, you can say to it, Alexa, play the latest episode of Discography Discussion, and she will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Yes, we do enjoy 5-star reviews whenever we get them. And, you know, the thing is about 5-star reviews is that we like to see more of them. Not that we're not happy with the ones that we have. It has been really great seeing your guys' support to get us to be a 5-star rated podcast on iTunes. That's a huge honor, and it helps us show up better in search results and things like that. So we appreciate those who have reviewed us. And if there's any way you'd like to reach out to us to give us advice or give us information, or if you just want to, have a conversation with us, definitely hit us up. If you like our podcast and you want to see us do well, we definitely love seeing those 5-star reviews show up on iTunes.
We have a YouTube comment from Mason Danza.
Oh, Mason Danza.
Mason makes a return. We will be in touch very soon, sir. This was on our Living Sacrifice episode that posted last week. Living Sacrifice was definitely a major influence of ours. First metal show I ever saw was these guys at Vino's in Little Rock. I have definitely been there, and that is an amazing fucking place. It was before Reborn had been released, but Bruce had already taken over vocals. Great job as always, guys. Keep it up. Well, Mason, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for that, and we will be in touch very soon, sir.
Yeah, I'll send you a text soon, buddy.
I'm wishing I was on the episode for his band, because I love those guys too.
You talking about Tony Danza?
Oh yeah.
Hey, give it a year. We'll revisit it.
That sounds great.
Because why not?
Yeah, we do revisit things from time to time. We also got a comment on Facebook from Josiah Heiberg. He's actually commented before, so we're glad that you're still listening, Josiah. That's awesome. And his comment was, "So good, guys. Loved this episode. It inspired me to go back to Living Sacrifice and revisit them. They never really clicked with me. It's been years, and my tastes have definitely drifted towards their sound. And I'm stoked on a Circle of Dust episode. How deep are you going? Clayton has been involved in absolutely every fucking thing, even down to the guy who makes the Transformers sounds for the score to the latest Transformers movie. I bet you could get him to say a few words too." To which I actually did respond. I said, "We're just going to stick with the main Circle of Dust releases. However, that doesn't mean we won't talk about some of Clayton's other projects in the future." And Josiah, we do have a potential thing that you might be interested in coming later this week, so stay tuned for that. And keep the comments coming, man. Love talking to you guys.
So, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about Sybreed.
Sybreed, what is there to say other than the fact they're really a two-man. Two men have been doing this from start to finish. They've had revolving bass players and drummers, but Ben and Drop, his name's Thomas, but he goes by Drop. He's the guitarist. Ben's the lead singer. Have been working on this as a collaborative effort from early 2000s all the way up until essentially it was around 2012, 2013, after they were done touring for God as an Automaton, that unfortunately they split ways. But it wasn't all bad. I mean, Ben's about as good as a vocalist you could get, but he had some other things that he had to take care of first, which, I mean, everybody gets that. Real life sometimes just gets in the way of everything else you want to do.
I feel you, buddy.
That's a very common thing amongst two-man studio projects is there's a lot of time for real life.
What are you trying to say, Joe?
And that's actually something I kind of wanted to hit on, since it is it's not really a studio project, but it eventually turned into that. Drop actually has his own studio, and he does a lot of work with other artists. He runs Downtown Studios in Switzerland. So he actually does a lot of work with a lot of other metal or industrial metal, and actually he kind of he does other music as well. But yeah, he does like Clarfield and the Urkanauts and some other stuff that's actually pretty cool. People should check it out. And he's also the bass player in Sam Hale too, so if you're into that, I mean, that's one of his primary gigs as well. So he's a very busy guy, so it's kind of understandable why they kind of had to split ways, because he's doing so much all the time. But yeah, great band, especially if you like stuff that's pretty technical, with a guy who's got one of the best screams on the face of the earth. Ben has got one of the best vocals. I mean, his clean singing is something you gotta kind of is an acquired taste. But my God, whenever he does anything that isn't clean, it's perfect. And even live, the dude his screams are just inhuman. That's the best way for me to explain it. He has an inhuman voice.
This has been Jeff's final thoughts in the opening of the show.
Oh, dude, I could. You guys could just record me for like the next 3 hours of me talking about these guys. So don't worry, I will definitely have some closing thoughts as well.
Cool. I'm going to bed then. See ya. Yeah, I agree with most of what Jeff said, and I think that this band's really interesting in the sense that I think that they appeal to kind of multiple crowds. I guess, you know, on the industrial side as well as the metal side, and for guys like me that like raspy, snarly, growly vocals, it's definitely very much in line with that.
So let's talk about 2004, Slave Design.
Let's.
I'm pretty sure they had an EP before this and more than one after it, but this is Discography Discussion. We talk about the major releases, and this was their first release.
Yeah, and actually I believe it was their most popular of all the releases as well, which is interesting because I don't think it comes even close to being their best release. But I think it's the well, you know what, it kind of hits on what Dan was talking about, the whole cross-platform. This is by far their most industrial of all the releases. And it was coming out, you know, when at the tail end of industrial being, you know, really, really popular. So I get why this is probably the most listened album, but by far is it not their best in my opinion.
Well, this was also the other side of the world where electronic music, I believe the term that Germany would use would be dance metal, never really went away, but this was when it started taking a break. It wasn't the big thing anymore. And I know when I listen to this, I hear very abrupt stops on the guitars. The drums are in sync with the riffs. There's electronics going on and melody going over the top. But the abruptness and the way that the riffs are in unison, that would become a staple of Degent. And what we would later come to criticize Degent for sounding electronic, well, this was electronic.
Right.
And it was very much on purpose. And it's groovy, it's fun. It's that dance thing that you get from listening to electronic music, where the intention is usually to create atmosphere without actually being atmospheric. It's all in the effects, it's all in the way it's produced. And I wouldn't say that this is a typical example, but it would be a modern day typical example of what that style would be.
See, off this, I just get a really big In Flames Soundtrack to Your Escape vibe. The electronics are there. The riff patterns are very similar to that record. Basically, what you have is, I think, what In Flames might have been going for on that record, because I think it's not too far away from the same time.
Well, Sybreed and In Flames have toured regularly.
Yeah, I think I get a huge Soundtrack to Your Escape vibe, especially off of this record, especially the first song, Bioactive.
Yeah.
Despite the vocals being different, if you told me this was a B-side or an unreleased track off of Soundtrack to Your Escape, I'd probably believe it. The guitars kind of have that kind of like basketball bounce to them, and you know, like Joe was saying, it sounds a little bouncy. It sounds a little Degent, I guess, if you want to use that word. It's just it's very pummeling though, and I think they really tried making an impression on this album, in that, yes, this is going to be electronic, it's going to be melodic, but it's not necessarily beat you over the head with the tire iron brutal, which is weird, because I feel like the vocals themselves, the harsh vocals, kind of evoke emotion in me that makes me think that this should have been harder than it was.
Yeah, I mean, Ben is about as brutal as it gets when it comes to, especially in the higher range, the way that he just kicks your ass with his vocals. But you're right. I mean, they're really, the music tends to be pretty melodic underneath them all throughout their career for the most part.
And Jeff, I'm going to lean on you for this because,
yeah,
for me, this style of industrial metal, industrial rock, for me, the songs run together. And it's like they went 80% to a single, and then they just gave up at the 80% mark and said, we're going to fill in the rest of it with just atmosphere. So while I can find familiar things and I can hear familiar melodies, I don't hear these songs and remember them like, oh, I gotta listen to this song by Sybreed.
Yeah, this first album does have truthfully quite a bit of it. There's a lot of it kind of flows into the next. There's really only probably the most like standout. It's completely different than everything else song on here is probably Machine Gun Messiah. I mean, that's just like brutal and in your fucking face. But most everything else has a different feel. But Machine Gun Messiah is definitely, in my opinion, it's by far not the most popular track, but to me it's the most standout. It is, Ben's screams on this are fucking crazy. Just straight up crazy. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Joe, on the fact that it flows pretty easy from one to the next, but I also like that too. And I think that was part of the original appeal for me. It's no secret, I'm an album listener, I'm not a singles listener. So I'm okay if it takes, a half hour to get through, to get the point across. And they're outside of Machine Gun Messiah, there's quite a bit of that on this record. So
well, that's also one of the best parts about this style of music is it's an album by design.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Slave Design for a freshman effort. I mean, my God. I mean, there's not many people that can come out of the gates like this.
It's very polished.
Yeah, it really is.
But
I mean, you can tell. I mean, because Drops had his hand in all of these albums. You can tell that he's had some sort of producing and editing chops before he, was in this band. I mean, and that's also the reason why it's his main gig now too. I mean, because he's got a talent for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that listens to especially most of the music I listen to. I don't listen to it for the singles because there are no singles. So I couldn't give less of a shit about that.
Right, me too.
But what I do like about this record is that it is a really good. I worked a lot this week, almost 70 hours. So I listened to a lot of Sybreed during that, and I have to say, I have found that they are extremely good workout music, so to speak. Having that constant beat behind it, I did find myself actually more productive while listening. And what I really liked about this too is the separation of the different types of vocals. You've got intense screams, you've got melodic singing, you've got kind of this like more harsher shout, which I think is used more often than not. And I actually like that because it really accentuates the heavy parts. When these songs break down, he goes into more of his like death metal or black metal shrieking, which I think really accentuates the heaviness on the songs. And this does follow them throughout their career. I really have an issue. I didn't really have any issues with this record other than the fact that I do wish that it was more memorable. I really enjoy listening to it while I'm listening to it, but it doesn't stick with me as much as the other releases did. Right.
And one of the things that I work a lot while listening to these guys. And it's one of those things where, like you were talking about, they're really good for working out or when you're doing shit. You put your head down on the first track, and then you look up, and shit, it's 40 minutes later, and the album's over. You're like, where the hell did the last 40 minutes go? And they're really, really good at that. I mean, it just, you kind of like lose yourself in their music. At least I do.
Well, that's one thing about industrial music, and I don't mean pure industrial. I mean, when you get industrial rock, industrial metal, it's almost a band, and it really doesn't matter who it is. You can put them on, and everybody in the room is going to hear something that they like, and everybody's going to end up being okay with it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of layers going on, so there's definitely different things that you can pick out and you can key in on. And I think that's the other reason why I like it too. Is it is well produced, it's well put together, and there's so many different things that you can check out.
I would definitely rather hear this for the first time than another playthrough of the top 40 hits of the past 40 years at a random store.
Oh yeah,
on Main Street.
Dude, when I used to run a record store, and I used to just like freak people out. Thank God I was in a college town, because they definitely did most of my buying. But whenever I get like an old couple come in, and I'm playing, I was playing like Sybreed or Soilwork or some other European metal band that I was into at the time, and they would just like freak out. But I turned that little goofy ass town into a bunch of metalheads. It was the best thing ever. I sold so much metal in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Missouri, in a college town, that it was just fan-fucking-tastic. But yeah, these guys are great, and
let's go to 2007.
Yeah,
Antares.
Yeah, Antares. I mean, this is my favorite album. Still, probably not the best album though. But this album introduced me really to my favorite drummer of all time. He's a studio drummer for this. But the shit that he does on this, oh my God. Dirk Verbeuren, I mean, he's probably best known for, he was a drummer for several years in Soilwork, and now he's the drummer for Megadeth. But they actually had to, they did some YouTube videos on some of his drum tracks that he was doing, because they knew people weren't going to believe that one man was making all of this noise. So if you ever get a chance, just look that up, and you'll be like, holy shit, it is one guy making all that noise. That's not a drum track with a drummer. No, that's one dude doing everything, and it's insane.
I am going to complain about this album running into the last album later, but I love how both of these records fake you out at the very beginning with the standard industrial intro.
Yeah.
And then they hit you with heavy fucking guitars and the fucking beat, and the electronic atmosphere is there, and then the vocals hit. Yes, they run together. They're almost companion pieces to each other.
I disagree on that, but I've listened to them a whole lot more though too.
But I love that use of the industrial fake out. It's like, and this isn't a techno album.
No, this is straight up sci-fi metal. I mean,
I like that.
Dude, this shit is fucking awesome.
Jeff Kane 2017, sci-fi metal.
Dude, that's what this is.
I think this was better. I think this was better than the first album.
Slave Design, yeah.
Because this was more melodic, but the melodies actually went somewhere. I feel like on the first album it was like, okay, this has to be melodic because it has to. And a lot of it, like I said, sounded like other bands, sounded like some other albums, sounded very, very In Flamesy, or at least latter day In Flamesy. And in case you didn't know, that latter day In Flamesy sound isn't really my cup of tea. Which is actually why I liked the first album, because it was like that, but it was much better. But no, I really liked this one. I thought the singing was better, and it's weird because I typically won't praise an album for being more melodic than the last. But I think in this case it works. I actually hear the industrial on this a lot better. A lot. It's more clear, I guess. Whereas the first album, I don't necessarily know if I would have classified it as industrial. It sounded like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, like a lot of that stuff. And I like those bands. I like that sound, but I didn't really have room necessarily in my brain for another band that was playing a similar style. So I feel like maybe that first album was like, okay, we're a band, here we are, we exist. Antares, though, is to me sounds like what Sybreed sounds like from here on.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think they definitely found their footing on this album. I think that's probably part of the reason why I like it so much, is the fact that it's like, okay, this is who we are, and this is the direction we're going. I mean, if all right, Joe, go straight to Dynamic, because that's fucking insane in the beginning.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because
that's one dude.
This was going to be the song that I was going to mention as the standout to my mind.
Yeah, this is, dude, Dirk Verbeuren is a goddamn beast.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd like to hear any other drummer do the shit that he does on this track.
I want to know.
Oh, there's one guy.
There's one man.
All right.
Anyway,
That's fine. I know. But I mean, I think in modern drummers, he's criminally underrated, and unfortunately, he's stuck with Megadeth, where he's not using
He's
his
just
full,
keeping a beat, bro.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, I know it's a bigger name for him to get noticed.
I would take a higher paying job.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did. But I mean, he's done a lot of collaborations with Devin Townsend, so that should be enough to make you understand on how good this dude is, because Devin Townsend...
He sleeps with a knife, yeah.
Yeah, Devin Townsend does not mess around.
That's almost sci-fi right there.
Yeah.
We need to put that on next year, I think.
Dynamic's a good song. I really like Neurodrive a lot.
Yeah.
Dynamic's interesting to me, though, because it is actually the only... I know earlier Jeff was saying that the band describes themselves as black wave, which is probably the dumbest descriptor I could imagine.
Or maybe it's Death Wave. I can't remember, but they...
Well, whichever.
This is 2007, where everybody had to make up their own genre.
This is the closest to black metal the band got with that intro. It sounds very black metal-ish to me before kind of kicking into more of like a... kind of like their metalcore melodic death metal sound again. But this album, too, separates itself from being really quite like those genres with its extensive overuse almost of keyboards and drum programming. And that's really... This is the point where really that's all that they're holding on to as far as the industrial side of it. Because to me, industrial music is usually more electronics-driven, whereas electronics just sound like an accompaniment to the music. I feel like in a lot of ways you could strip the electronics off of this and you would still just have a decent melodic death metal record.
I agree. I think even though I talk about Dynamic and then actually the end of Revive My Wounds, that's another one where Dirk is going fucking crazy on the drums, like the last minute of that song. But the standout track for me on this is probably 12 Megatons Gravity. That's probably my favorite track on this, and it's probably because it's all over the place, and it definitely has more of an industrial feel, especially on the intro.
I would definitely say this is the song where the glow sticks show up.
Yeah, it is. But this whole album's great. I think I thought you guys would have fun with the fact that there's a track on here called X and Fairies. So
that is pretty fun.
Yeah. not the same vibe, but yeah.
No. But yeah, this album was actually what put me back on track with metal. And that's probably why it's my favorite, because I kind of had gotten into the I don't know, I was depressed and got really into the whole indie folk bullshit. I mean, and I still enjoy that from time to time, but I needed something to kick me in the ass because I was having a really rough time, and I had actually made a Pandora channel for Atreyu, and I was listening to Atreyu. I'm like, yeah, this is the same run of the mill. So Atreyu would come up, Kill Switch Engage, all that kind of shit would come up, and then I started an In Flames channel after that, and this came on like the third song. I'm like, holy shit, what is this? Because I'd never heard anything quite like 12 Megatons Gravity, and I was like, I gotta check these guys out. And I bought everything I could get my hands on since then, except for the next albums. They had a Japanese track that was way too fucking expensive to get it here. It was like $80, and I was like, I'm not going to pay $80 just for one song.
Oh, I remember when imports were actually imports, and they would cost 3 times as much to get your hands on.
Yeah.
I think, this was more of a solidifying record for the band. I definitely enjoy it more. It's definitely a step up from their previous material.
Oh, yeah, no question.
But I do have to agree with Joe here and say that Sybreed is not the kind of band that you want to just cram their entire discography in 5 days, which is what we do. It's the only downside to our format sometimes, is that sometimes we don't necessarily get to spend the amount of time with an album that we really need to spend with it to find the more find the deeper cuts, I guess.
Right. Their music is really, really busy. So you're right. I mean, It's just like trying to take Tony Danza in a few days. That's you know, that's a lot to ask, because it's what I would call busy music. There's a lot of moving parts in these songs. So trying to, you know, digest all of that in a week sometimes is an insurmountable task. And that's probably why I'm going to have a different perspective on these guys than you guys will, just because I've been listening to these guys for over a decade. So,
right.
You know, and regularly, I mean, this band is always in my rotation. Always.
Sure, dude. It's like when I talk about Zayo, you know?
Yeah,
it's,
exactly. That's a good point. This is probably my Zayo.
Well, and I think this is definitely, you know, and whenever I say that the albums seem to run together, that it's hard to digest all of it, I'm not saying that necessarily to be hypercritical, because, you know, it's not the artist's fault that you can't be bothered to pay attention. You know what I mean? So I think it's acceptable to say that, you know, a band like Sybreed, you know, maybe you listen to one album for 2 weeks and you move to the next, you know, for 2 weeks and that sort of thing. To really, you know, sit down and read the lyrics, which I actually love the lyrics for this band. They're not cheesy, you know, because it's like a lot of industrial metal bands are very cheesy, and they do definitely bark up the sci-fi tree a little bit, and I hear a lot of like critique of modern society told through the lens of sci-fi. So really, if I could compare the lyrics of Sybreed to anything, it'd be the TV show Black Mirror.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to another band, and I was going to say, what, like Coheed and Cambria?
No.
I was like, no, don't tell me that.
No, it's like Black Mirror in the sense that, you know, it's modern critique told through the eyes of science fiction.
Yeah, I'm down with that. It's not like there's a ton of other Swiss metal bands out there.
Right.
So
Are you kidding, dude? There's so many. It's out of control.
I know, but as far as like,
is Avatar Swiss?
No,
Are they Finnish?
No, Avatar's Swedish, I thought.
Swedish, that's what it is. Okay. There's too many S fucking countries.
Oh, it's Swedish, so, you know, it's metal.
So Roxette's metal? Woohoo!
All right,
They're
yeah.
Swedish.
I mean, at least a little bit.
ABBA, they're metal.
All right, well, before I go and get my glow sticks out,
Ace of Base.
I think we need to move on to the Pulse of Awakening.
Oh, yeah, dude. No, go get them. You need them for this record.
Oh, dude,
You are not kidding. I need them for this record.
Dude, this record, this is the culmination of Sybreed, in my opinion. This is by far, and I don't think it's even close, the most complete and best Sybreed
I was going to say
album.
this one is my favorite of the four. So
yeah, it's not my favorite, but I think it's simply because of the sentiments I have for Antares bringing me back into the metal fold. So,
sure.
You know, it's just, you know, we've talked about that before, but yeah, Pulse of Awakening is about as complete as it gets, and it's got my favorite song that they've ever done on it as well.
I think if you had a volume fader, and on one fader you had metal, on the second fader you had atmosphere, and on the third fader you had electronics, the Pulse of Awakening would be the perfect blend of those three components. So, almost by definition, this is their best album.
Yeah, they've actually talked about how they were actually influenced by New Wave quite a bit on this album as well.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Especially on songs like Doomsday Party.
Yeah.
Like, it's very out in front.
I'd rather listen to this than him. I mean, I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather listen to a band I like than see blood in my urine, but...
Yeah, you don't like the love metal? Aww.
Oh, dude, give me this over whatever that is any day of the week.
Well,
this
you know,
is sci-fi love metal.
I think this one is the most industrial out of all of them. Like, it's because, you know, like for the first two albums I talked about being able to strip away the electronic elements, but they did way too better. Yeah, they did a much better job of stirring it all up in this one and making it blend, and you know, there's not as much separation between the heaviness and the electronic and the melody. It's all kind of woven together, because I think any record that a band puts out, they are putting a puzzle together essentially. You know what I mean? And it's almost like a Rubik's Cube. And I think whenever you're first starting out, you get some of the same colored squares in the same side of the cube, but it's usually not until your second or third album that you're actually completing entire sides of that cube as one color. And I know that maybe is kind of an abstract example, but I thought about that a lot when I was listening to this Rubik's Cubes for some reason. And I was just thinking about how, like, yeah, this is the one where it all clicks into place. It's kind of like that relieving sigh that you get whenever you figure out something that's kind of hard to pin down. And really, with this style of music, I think the worst thing that can happen is that it can get boring. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, it can either be boring or it can just become completely pop, And it wouldn't be hard for a band like Sybreed to just drop the metal stuff completely and go into a more melodic, new wavy direction. But they avoided that here. It's literally meets everything right in the middle, right where it needs to go. The way this, if this style of music, had a pre-existing design before this band, they're kind of the first ones that really kind of nailed it. I have nothing but good things to say about this record. The songs are much more memorable. They separate easier for me in my head. I don't just hear one long experience throughout, but there's a huge mix of different emotions and things going on. And I really like the dynamics of the music. Going from brutally heavy to pop choruses, but it not being about that. It not being this like cheesy transition, this like, okay guys, here's our super heavy part, but now we're going to formulaically go into this melodic chorus. It's not like that. It's really broken up.
Yeah, it should feel like it should actually be there.
Right, like it was composed.
Right, and that's mainly because it was. I mean, he Drop got his, had his experimentation is finished. Now he knows what he's looking for a completed product.
Right.
And that's exactly what this is. This is a complete product. And, it just kicks your ass right off a Nomenklatura right off the get-go. Damn, what a way to open an album, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, Doomsday Party, Human Black Box, Electronegative, Lucifer Effect. These songs are just one after another, and this is not just some little 30-minute deal too. This is like an hour long, with songs that actually have some meat in them. I don't think there's any song on this record that's less than 3 minutes. Well, yeah, and the closer's like really long, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's a lot of white noise for like the last 10 minutes.
It's mostly silence, but yeah.
No, it's white noise. It's like a white noise. It's not silence. It actually has one of my favorite covers on it too. And it actually harkens back to they do a really good job of going back to one of the bands that really brought the darker side of industrial to light, and that's Love Like Blood. I thought that was a fantastic cover. Maybe I can understand some people getting pissy about it because it's too much like the original. But, the original song by The Killing Joke, which is a great band. If you haven't checked them out, you really should.
It's a great fucking comic, too.
Yeah, it is a great comic. But, since we're in Industrial December, let's pay homage to our roots. And they really, really helped put it on the map back in the day. When everybody was looking at the pop side of it with Depeche Mode, the Dark Underbelly was the Killing Joke. And they were fan-fucking-tastic.
I don't know, Jeff, when you say it sounds too much like the original, to me that sounds like, well, these guys know how to read sheet music. Because that's always the excuse is, oh, I wanted to do it my way and have it be different. And it was, no, I just don't think you were capable of performing it the way the artist wrote it. So you decided to change it rather than pick a different song.
Yeah.
Well, see, I didn't know it was a cover.
Yeah, it is a cover.
That speaks a lot to this album in the sense that to me it just sounded like a natural progression,
right?
In their music, which is a great reason to throw anything in there, And no, I thought this sounded really good, and I liked how different it sounded than the rest of the record. And yeah, I'll definitely have to check that band out, The Killing Joke, because I'd never heard them before. And I'd be interested to hear what the original sounds like versus this.
Yeah, they didn't get a whole lot of airplay here in the States. I think actually Love Like Blood, it was their biggest song back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
From The Killing Joke. But it actually, it leads into, or the song that was right before this actually leads into it, which is actually my favorite song, and you mentioned it earlier, which is
Lucifer Effect. Yeah,
dude. Dan knows that I am a big fan of a band, or it's actually a duo called E.S. Posthumus, and I always think to myself, if E.S. Posthumus was actually decided to do a metal song, this is what it would sound like. I like how I'm going to use my favorite word, atmosphere. People already know I love classical music, so it's like it's got like this huge, larger than life opening.
I skip forward 30 seconds.
No, don't do that shit, man.
You get to the good stuff after that.
Yeah, well, it sets the stage for the rest of the song, in my opinion.
Yeah, you hippie.
Oh, dude. I mean, that's why I love, Dan is such, he talks about how much meat there is in the lyrics, and there really is. This is a crazy fucking song. It's one of the few times I actually pay attention to lyrics.
Wait, if I like meaty lyrics, does that make me a meathead?
Uh-oh, I'm telling Toomey.
Damn. Oh, well.
This song is probably my top 10 of all time. I actually bought my last pair of speakers specifically because of this song. I listen to I tend to spend way too much money on my audio, as people who know me can attest to. And I bought a pair of bookshelf speakers. They were about $1,200, and they sound. I mean, it was like they were made for this song, and this song is like, I can't even explain what it does for me. Like, if I'm in a shit mood, I put this on, I feel better. If I'm in a great mood, I put this on, I feel even better. It just calms me down, relaxes me. It's beautiful, it's haunting, it's brutal. I mean, it's everything I ever want in a song. I get all the emotions. It can cover anything and everything that I ever want, all in one song.
Well, if this is
strong
driving
feelings on display tonight.
Oh, dude, big time.
If this is the driving down the highway at 90 miles an hour with nowhere in sight is there an officer of the law, then the final album by this band, God is an Automaton, is your built-in dash navigation saying turn right and exit at 197, because we're getting close to the end here.
This is the end.
We've got about another hour of music.
Oh, no, I'm saying God is the Automaton.
But where is the industrial? It's gone. One song in. This is almost all metal, very little electronics. We took everything that we balanced perfectly in the last record, and we grabbed the two on the right and just pulled them down.
No, it's still in here. You just got to go in a few tracks. You get to Challenger, and you'll be like, okay, yep, there it is.
Well, that's not a few tracks. That's 8 tracks out of 11.
Yeah.
So I would say the majority of the music here is definitely more in line with metal, especially when you look at the cover artwork. Like, it's very much like trying to evoke an emotion of brutality. Except that the other record covers didn't look metal, but this especially, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm never gonna get mad at a band for being heavy.
Yeah.
It's just a shock after 3 records to have so little of the electronics.
Yeah, I was surprised by this one because I expected it to be more pop. I mean, you can't just release an album like The Pulse of Awakening and then like just go in a heavier direction after that. I mean, obviously you can because Sybreed did it, but like it's just interesting to me that they would make this choice. But it was not a bad choice.
No, I think it was a calculated change, especially after how big Doomsday Party was, and that's so what they are not about. That's the poppiest song they've ever had, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the biggest song that they've ever had.
Yeah,
I mean, it showed up on Rock Band and all kinds of other shit back in the day, and they're like, dude, that's not who we are. This is a hell of a lot closer to who we are, and I think I should make a point on this. Throughout the records, Ben sounds different for us, like the types of screams he can do. He's so versatile, I think. He sounds totally different on this. He is like, I'm like, how can you like have a voice after 30 seconds on this album?
You get used to it.
Over a decade of doing it live.
I know, but
yeah.
it's like he was always at at 10. On this one, he turned it up to 11. I'm like, damn, dude. Do you need like vocal cord surgery after this one? Because it's so crazy.
I don't know. He quit right after this record, so I mean.
Yeah, he did, but
Who knows?
I don't think that was the reason why. It was more of a personal / family thing. All these guys are, they've been doing, by the time this God is an Automaton is out, they've been doing this shit for over a decade. Drop already has something he can fall back on. I don't know what else Ben was doing besides Sybreed. And as much as I love them, I don't know if Sybreed by themselves is enough to pay the bills, so to speak.
I would say not. I think it can be said that if Jeff recommended the band, that band is not making as much money as we are.
Historically, that would be a fair assumption.
This band had a discography.
Yeah, you're probably right. I do love my starving artists. I really, really do. But I'm really excited that at least Drop has been able to have other people that feel the same way that I do about him, and have had people come to him to get his signature sound on their albums, especially like Chlorophyll, which if we ever do like a hodgepodge episode of industrial metal, those guys will definitely show up. They don't have enough discography to have their own, but they are fantastic as well. And you can tell that Drop has had his hands on everything that they've done on their composition. But yeah, but God is an Automaton is really, really good. There's a lot of, I think this might have some of Ben's best singing on it is probably on this album. That's just my personal opinion. I really, really like Line of the Least Resistance. I don't know, Dan likes it too because it's a fucked up video.
Yeah. So that was a weird video, man.
Yeah.
It's weird too because it definitely reminded me, like what I said earlier, it reminded me like I felt like I was watching an episode of Black Mirror. But Sybreed was there, so it was all good.
Yeah, and I think
5 years prior,
and I think that video does a really good embodiment of who Sybreed is as well.
Yeah. I mean, the visual imagery really matches up with the lyrics.
Yeah, it really does.
And just the overall sound of the band.
Yes, it does.
This kind of like high tech, futuristic sort of sound that they were going for.
Yeah, that's what's hidden underneath. That's really the bones of their music. Is this futuristic high tech shit? And everything else is just kind of like polish on top. But there's really if you stripped everything down, that's really what they're about.
Into the Blackest Light for me. That was
dude, I was jamming the shit out of that song on the way down. Put that one on, Joe. That song is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I'm listening to it right now.
Dude, that is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely my standout track on this record. I really like High Tech versus Low Life though. Yeah,
you're probably those are probably my two favorites. I probably think Into the Blackest Light's my favorite, but I really do like. I think my second favorite is the Line of Least Resistance, and Posthuman Manifesto is really good too.
This particular song, there's almost a not quite the same band as Opeth feeling. The way they are using the electronics and the dissonant guitars and the rhythmic drumming. Yes, I know that drumming is a rhythm by definition, but just go with me on this one. It almost sounds like a fake Opeth, and that's a compliment.
I think this is just straight up. This sounds like industrial metal to me. This song does. Starting with like Challenger.
You're talking about this doesn't sound anything like Fear Factory.
Oh shit!
Like they're the only standard bearer. This is more like the anemic type of vibe of industrial metal. I guess because they're kind of like in a chaotic industrial metal band. They're all over the fucking place, and
the vocals on Into the Blackest Light remind me a lot of Extol, like later Extol.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's some brutality on all these records.
Some,
for the most part, they're just heavy and atmospheric.
Yeah, I don't think there's a mistake that Drop's his nickname #1 is Drop. And number 2,
Right.
his studio is named Downtone Studios. I mean, if there's one thing besides how great everything is across the albums, Downtone is definitely something that you could say is across the board on all of their albums. I think you could play like all of these songs on two strings on the guitar.
Yeah, probably.
But I am fucking all right with it, man. It sounds great.
What are you talking about? This doesn't sound anything like it in this moment.
Ugh.
I like In This Moment, but we're not talking about them tonight. All right, Jeff. You have the floor, and you have an unspoken time limit. Final thoughts on Sybreed.
Most important thing about Sybreed is that they're one of my all-time favorite bands, so that should be a big reason why they're why they're important. No, I just like on how well they were able to bridge the gap between industrial and metal. In my opinion, I like the darker side of industrial and not necessarily the dance side of it. And I think they do a really good job of blending that with melodic metal, probably mostly melodic death metal. They're just a good band. They don't do anything poorly. And I think there's not really a bad track when you go through it. Sure, I mean, whenever you're listening to an entire album on some of their earlier stuff, you can't, there's not necessarily a standout, track that you remember the most. But the fact that there's nothing you can really bitch about, from start to beginning, I think is more important than having a standout track. But I'm always an album listener. I can listen, and actually I did it multiple times this week, even though I didn't have to, because I know their stuff forwards and backwards. Just started at the beginning and went all the way to the end, and loved every second of it. These guys are just consummate professionals, and I'm really, really looking forward to the Obsidians that's coming out. That's actually the new formation of the band. Essentially, it's everybody but Ben coming back. And if you want to, you can, if you go to either to Downtone Studios or to Obsidian's Facebook page, they actually have a hint of what's coming on. And if you're a fan of Threat Signal, you definitely want to check out their first single, because we might have some guest vocalist from Threat Signal, which is another favorite band of mine.
This episode is full of teases. Has anybody else noticed that, or is that just me?
Oh, dude, that's because I'm looking forward to the new stuff that's coming out.
All right, Dan, what about you?
I think if you bought the Dark Tranquillity album in 2016 called Atoma, and you want to hear a band that sounds like that all the time, check out Sybreed. You'll like them.
I think Sybreed is heavy. I think Sybreed is industrial, and I think Sybreed is awesome. And I think everybody should pick up at least their first record and listen to that. But if I had to pick one, it would be The Pulse of Awakening. And enjoy. And I love industrial. And it's Industrial December. I don't have a lot to say about Sybreed because I've only taken them in this week, but they are a band that I have added to my wall of what do I want to listen to today. And I think that is a definite plus because these are albums that I can pull out, put on, and not have to skip around. These are records I can put on and enjoy in their entirety, and those are my favorite records. Dan, what's your album of the week?
My album of the week? Well, I've just been listening to Sybreed, so... is it lame to make the band that you're covering album of the week?
Only if your definition of lame is making the album of the week the band you're listening to.
No, I think that should be a... I think that's actually an attribute to how good the band is. If you're willing to just listen to.
Well, I'm not easily impressed, but I will put the Pulse of Awakening in as my album of the week. It's the album that I listen to the most, so we'll go with that.
I'm gonna say taking a small break from industrial, but not a huge break from industrial. We just
started. You're taking a break?
Well, just with my album of the week.
Dive in head first, fucker.
All right, I'll dive in head first, and I'm going to say Transform by Powerman 5000. My favorite Powerman 5000 record that very few people actually take the time to listen to. But you've heard the singles from this record. I'll let that be the tease.
All right. For me, since I made a tease, It's going to be Disconnect by Threat Signal. It's brand new, brand spanking new, so go check that shit out.
Well, Dan, recap for those that don't know, what's coming up in Industrial December?
Industrial December, next week we are talking about Clank, and from what I hear, next week we may actually be talking to Clank. So that would be cool too. And we've got Circle of Dust coming up, and it's going to be good. You're going to have more programmed drum loops than you can shake a stick at. So,
and what's going to be our final band of the month? Because I know the Christmas special this year is going to be Project 86.
Yes, we're doing Project 86. And I don't remember what the fourth band is. Well, we should have a fully completed Dream Theater episode coming up soon too. So
yeah, that's going to be a repost. We're going to put up the second half that we finally got to finish, and along with a couple bonus episodes of Atom Ship and Death Therapy recut and reposted. So December's going to have a lot of stuff coming from Discuss Metal.
You're gonna. If it's our Christmas present to you, you're going to get a lot of extra stuff that you may have already heard before, but it's going to be remixed in the spirit of industrial.
And then keep in mind that that means lots of listening to do on your Christmas break.
Absolutely.
And on that note, this has been episode 40 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.